Keeping up with the news is like going for a swim these days. What with social news, machine-written news, fake news, and content marketing, the mediascape has become colorful and vibrant, but also overcrowded and really loud. My name is Hout, and this is my Pecha Kucha on transmodal news production. I thank the conveners for inviting me to participate in this virtual pre-panel, and I apologize to the other speakers for not being able to keep up with the presentations posted so far. For the purpose of this talk, I'm defining transmodality as a trajectory across modes of production and representation. More specifically, I'm talking about how a provocative or otherwise juicy quote tends to travel from one global news outlet to another, leading to a snowball of coverage and news about the news. For instance, when in 2013 Toronto Mayor Rob Ford was asked if he had ever smoked crack cocaine, he famously replied, "Have I tried it? Probably in one of my drunken stupors." The result was a field day for news media the world over, a global media frenzy, if you will. Now, whenever a scandal of this magnitude breaks, news media tend to go all out, saturating the coverage with live updates, reactions, and interviews, and at some point the coverage inevitably turns to social media. And it is reported that the news has caused a stir on Twitter or Facebook. Next, we see analyses of reactions to the news about the news until a critical voice pipes up, calling into question the validity of said news story. Finally, we see news media mocking other news media for covering the news in the first place. What makes gaffes like these interesting from a media linguistic point of view is that they point to particular ways of speaking. And as Michael Silverstein reminds us, gaffes, blunders, and bloopers in the public sphere are considered revelatory of the carefully crafted facade of performance in which a self, an identity, a biography is performatively achieved for the electorate and broader addressees. To successfully perform the political self, politicians must adhere to the language regime that news media enforce and police. And by policing, I'm referring to the creation of order in the public sphere. For instance, here's how Belgian newspaper De Standaard represented the Rob Ford incident in November 2013. I'm reproducing a screenshot of the Ongehoord section of the newspaper. This is a weekly feature that satirizes 10 quotes that should not have made the news, but which did, of course. Now, what makes this type of news discourse stand out is that every quote is contextualized by journalists' own tongue-in-cheek interpretations of who said what, about or to whom, and how. What we see here is a brief quote, no longer than a tweet, stripped of its interactional context and repackaged as infotainment. Note also the juxtaposition between the claim expressed in the quoted source and the interpretive meta-comment written by the journalist. This is a clash of two forms of journalistic representation, namely the quote-unquote objective news practice of attribution and the subjective evaluative meta-discourse that signals its own ironic purpose. While this type of playful meta-journalism can easily be disqualified as low-hanging fruit, I argue that it focuses attention on the cultural norms and boundaries of public communication in late modern media. So far in my analysis of some 670 quotes by politicians published in the weekly feature, I have found two commandments of media communication, if you will. These are, first, thou shalt comport thyself with dignity, which comprises the subcategories of don't talk trash, as London Mayor Boris Johnson is known to do, and second, don't showboat, as Silvio Berlusconi here boasts about his sexual prowess. A second and partly overlapping commandment is equally metapragmatic in nature and can be described as thou shalt watch what you say. As George Orwell rolls in his grave, political miscommunication in forms of gobbledygook can refer to the idiosyncratic use or the extension of metaphors in terms of phrase and as well as other parts of speech. For instance, Pieter de Krem is the Belgian Minister of Defense, who's renowned for his linguistic creativity. Here's how he describes a memo. It's a memo that was written on the corner of a table at one of the floors at General Staff Headquarters. Now, this makes no sense whatsoever in Dutch nor in English. Finally, a particularly savored moment in the politics of media language is the misfire. Here's another mayor, a Belgian one this time, addressing the people on New Year's Day. And I can assure you, there will be no alcoholic beverage controls tonight. Enjoy your drink. In this final example, Mayor Castor reveals himself as somebody who knows that New Year's Day can only be enjoyed without those pesky alcohol patrols. Now, what conclusions can be drawn from all this? Well, I argue that these ways of speaking throw into relief, first, the professionalization of public communication. Think of spin doctors, media training, carefully guarded media access. Second, the informalization of news genres and news styles, what with hybrid news, fake news, memes, listicles, and whatnot. 3, the interdependence of the political press and politicians. And finally, the boundaries of the speakable and the unspeakable. Herein lies the cultural power of news media in late modernity. Thank you, and here's to a productive conference in Brisbane. Cheers.